When you're running a business, it's all about systems. It's all about predictability. You need your numbers before you know whether you hit your revenue goals or not.
Referrals are fundamentally unreliable. You can't go into a month knowing how many leads you're going to get from referrals. You need to remove yourself from the business and actually have your business be a machine. Because as long as you are your own employee and every single revenue generating task is requiring you to spend time, you can never actually be the CEO of your company.
Business is not something that you can guess your way through. It's not something that you can just figure out on your own. Or maybe when you do, it's already cost too much time and money.
Group coaching in theory is a lot more scalable, but don't move your sales and marketing so fast that your fulfillment can't keep up. Because as soon as your fulfillment drops in terms of quality, bad things happen.
Am I allowed to talk about your secret sauce on what you taught me to do?
Yeah.
So I'm Chris. I think you, Lloyd did mention in the post that I used to be a public school teacher. I quit my job at the end of 2019, and I started out this business in 2020. I started out by saying, all right, look, I'm not serving the students as well in school. So I decided that, I'm going to try to do it my own way, without all the bureaucratic red tape, in the way that I think is the best way to serve others as well. My business did pivot thanks to the whole pandemic because, 2020 was the best time to start a business. Eventually things started coming down in Australia. We started getting sales coming in again towards the tail end of the year. And now it's sort of running like a little bit of a hybrid system of both in-person and online. I think one of the things that a lot of your listeners, Lloyd, would like to know is how do I make your strategies work with an offline business, with an actual brick and mortar center?
And there's a lot that we can go into, both in terms of how you're running your kind of more in-person type of fulfillment, but also there was a good chunk of the year where you were doing a lot of things virtually, both in terms of your sales cycles, but also in terms of your fulfillment. So we can go into that as well. But let's dive a little bit back into the early days. Back when you had joined my program, I know that you were, relying mostly on referrals, and because of that, the revenue wasn't super amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your business development strategy was back in, say, January of last year? You can give us the actual figures and the numbers that you were pulling in, and also tell us a bit more about your actual day-to-day attempts at growing the biz.
So look, when I first started in January 2020, I just left my school job and I was solely relying on my reputation as a teacher in the school. I had a handful of kids come through because they knew us from that school and they knew I was one of the best teachers there. And when they knew I came out to work on my own, they wanted to come and work with me. If you put it down to exact figures, I had 5 students, right? So I rented out a room in the library. We sat down there, we started running classes, and that was the start of the business.
And for context, what were you teaching these students exactly? What was your actual offering and what was the problem that you were solving?
Okay, right. I'm a high school teacher. So when I first came out, I started offering senior maths. I was like, that's what I've been teaching in school for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's what I know. So I got these 5 students, and that's what we started with. And then the business started to pivot when I was getting a lot of calls. Because a bit of a background. The school that I was teaching at is one of those selective entry schools, which means that the students have to sit a specialized exam before they get in. So when people started hearing about me, that I used to be one of the top teachers at this particular school, they started reaching out and say, hey, can you help? Can I help them prep for this specialized exam? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then from there, like our numbers started growing, but still it's mostly through word of mouth.
And what was the problem with that? Because you said that you got 5 clients from just your reputation. Like what was the thing that you felt as though, okay, you know what, this is cool, but I want to do something different. Why not just continue relying on reputation and word of mouth?
That's a great question. It's simply because there is no predictability. When you're running a business, it's all about systems. It's all about predictability. You need your numbers before you know whether you hit your revenue goals or not. Referrals without a proper referral system, that's just unreliable, and you're sort of like taking chances with your business. I believe in systems for everything. Like even when I teach my students, and I help my clients, we put them through a system, right? It's like this is where you're at, this is where you need to go, right? And so that we have this entire framework that they can work from. If your business is not working from a framework, right, and you're just set up to fail, it's like passion alone is not going to help my students, right? I need to give them something to work from. So your business needs the exact same thing.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting point. And of course, referrals are fundamentally unreliable. You can't go into a month knowing how many leads you're going to get from referrals, and even less so how many deals you're going to get from referrals. They're great, but I would treat them more as like a cherry on top than how you're actually building the basic foundational revenue that's coming into your business on a week-to-week or a month-to-month basis. So why did you end up wanting to work with us then? Was it for any particular reason, given where you were last January?
Well, I mean, look, I was shopping around for coaching programs because obviously I knew the content and I knew what I was going to teach, but I never done business before per se. Well, obviously I had my little side hustles here and there, but to actually grow something full time, right? I've never done something like that before. So when I saw Lloyd's post here and then we sort of connected on Facebook and we started talking. He invited me down to his webinar. Now I watched this webinar and I was like, look, Lloyd's a really cool guy, but let's try out his strategies. So I think in your webinar you talked about organic posting and like how to write an organic post and how that worked for you. So immediately later that day, I tried to write one post, put it up. I got like 30 comments on it, 12 people reaching out to me. And I was like, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. Immediately, signed on with Lloyd. And within 30 days, we were hitting 5K a month.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy because a lot of people have a hard time getting those results, even with the paid program. And that was our free webinar. Totally free piece of content that we had put out there. And you were already booking sales calls and closing potentially big and higher ticket deals. So let's go through the timeline of us actually working together. So in the first couple months, I know that you saw some pretty good results. So can you tell us a little bit more about, say, in the first quarter, the numbers that you were able to pull in per month, and what were the main activities that you were doing in order to pull in that revenue?
I don't exactly remember the numbers per month anymore. But yeah, look, the first 30 days of working together, I did hit that 5K a month. And I was thinking that, look, this is already, matching what I'm doing in school, working as a school teacher. So I was like, all right, we're definitely on the right track. And look, exactly what Lloyd said about, free webinars, they do work. Because what we're trying to do in your free webinar is giving out some value. Number one, people know that your strategies work. Number two, if they listen to you, they will buy into your ideas and your vision, right? So that's what I was trying to do as well. I didn't quite go webinar style, but we went on the organic posting. So I started posting pieces, a bit to do with more thought leadership rather than just, straight up and ad, all right, that we're selling this for $40 or whatever it is. So I put more thought into it, provide more value in my organic posts. And that's when people started responding. I wasn't even trying that hard in terms of, commenting or replying to every comment on the post. I was trying to work on getting my offer together, and I was getting like messages from everyone left, right, and center from these posts. So I think, in the first quarter we hit 10K a month. I think that was it.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And just from following that organic posting strategy alone, that we obviously teach our clients, and we very much feel it's a strong strategy. Well, just following that alone, like where did you guys get to in terms of revenue, or even in terms of just meetings that you're able to book on a per week basis? Could you give us some numbers as far as how that strategy was able to last for a little bit and the results?
Yeah. So I think like first quarter, second quarter, we were sort of doing 10K, 20K per month as we were, going along. We were looking to book, 7 to 9 appointments each week, just through this strategy alone. And this was me doing everything. This was me writing the post. This was me posting it. Everything done very manually. I was setting the appointments as well. And it was only until sort of like midway through last year where I got an appointment setter on, and I started getting someone to post my content all over the place. And that's where we started scaling that sort of revenue. And we sort of hit 30K somewhere in the middle of the year. And honestly, that's where we got stuck. Because that was me. I was fully booked out with students. I was stressing out. I was, spending my entire mornings, creating all this content and all my evenings delivering this content. And I was absolutely no more bandwidth. But yeah, so I came to Lloyd, and that's where we stepped onto your next program, the Quad Core. And you said, all right, Chris, you can't do all this by yourself. We got to find systems to put in place for you.
Yeah, no, and it's funny, like that's almost always the natural life cycle of my clients, because when they first join me and they're fascinated about generating organic reach, in your case, it was utilizing Facebook and Facebook groups and Facebook posting organically. That's always kind of the first thing that people get interested at when they're joining at your level, which is like very, very early on. But then eventually you just solve that problem, and lead generation is just like an afterthought. It's expected. And as long as you're putting in the work, you're going to get your 10 to 15 strategy sessions and sales calls per week. But yeah, like eventually, if you are overly relying on your own time to do it all, it's going to be a really, really big challenge. And actually, even for me, I was stuck at 30K per month for like 3 or 4 months for that exact same reason. And of course, I had to just figure it out myself that I had to remove myself from the process. But now when I have clients that come aboard, I can be just like very, very specific and say like, listen, I went that exact same problem. Like you need to remove yourself from the business and actually have your business be a machine. Because as long as you are your own employee and every single revenue generating task is requiring you to spend time, you can never actually be the CEO of your company. So on that note, let's talk a bit more about what we actually did together from the middle of last year and onward so that we could unlock some of that time, free it up in your calendar, have it be a bit more of a machine that you could be the CEO of. And we'll start to see how you transition from the 30 per month to this January where you collected 100K in cash.
Yeah, very good points brought up there, Lloyd. If we're talking about our journey and how we were working together, so I did jump on Lloyd's Quad Core program. We worked on a one-to-one basis at that time. I don't know if you're still on that anymore.
I have rebranded. So Chris, you're saying the Quad Core program. The same program is now called the Organic Autopilot Accelerator. So okay. Just so anyone here isn't confused, it's the same thing. I just rebranded middle of last year. Actually, I rebranded after we were working together one-on-one. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there because yeah.
Yeah, anyway, it was with one of Lloyd's program and we were working together, and we sort of came up with this 2-month battle plan on what exactly we're going to fix in my business. The first thing that we did was trying to figure out all the different ways in which I was spending my time. So I remember it was a couple of weeks we started logging, all right, I'm doing this in curriculum writing, I'm doing this in fulfillment, I'm doing this in sales, and this is, this is all the things I'm spending my time on. We then started to rank everything that we did, like what's critical, what's, what needs to be me and what doesn't need to be me, and what are things that I can start putting into a process. Putting things into the process was interesting because I've led a maths department in a school before, but I've never written an SOP. So Lloyd was showing me all these cool things that he did, in terms of writing SOPs, using the different programs.
Can you define what an SOP is first and foremost? Because there's some people listening to this that does not know what an SOP is. So before we talk about like, oh, I had you writing a ton of SOPs and I gave you some SOPs, let's make sure that everyone here listening understands what that is and why it's valuable.
Yep. Yeah, I completely skipped over that. That's not being a very good teacher. So, and SOP is your standard operating procedure. It's basically a list of instructions that you give to someone so that they can follow it and execute it exactly how you want them to do it. And it's exactly the way that you would have done it. So the problem with writing SOPs is sometimes it's, we have this idea that's very clear in our head, right? That's this is how that we're going to do it, right? But when we're translating into a document on a piece of paper, it's that there's so many like things that we do so instinctively that we don't think about. Yeah. So what Lloyd has taught me was, that we're going to put things in flowcharts, we're going to put things in, record things in videos, and then you have all this in your documents. And so this way, this is a repeatable process, right? So anyone can jump on board, they can go through your SOP and execute exactly what you want them to do. And I found that this saves so much of my time. So the first time I started getting people to help me with like some data entry stuff in terms of curriculum, putting things into an online platform, because obviously pandemic and we had to like deliver things online. I gave instructions to one person on Zoom. Within like 2 months, I needed a second person online, and I was like, "Look, that this is not right. If I have to jump on Zoom again and explain the whole process for another hour." So I took on Lloyd's advice. We put together a standard operating procedure. We had our flow charts, our videos, and all that, and it's now sitting nicely into a training folder on Google Drive. So since then, I've probably had like 6-7 people jump on and to help me with this, what I call it online transcription, which is just some data entry work. I never had to spend an hour on the phone with them ever again.
There you go.
Yeah, and imagine
that unlocked a ton of time. Yeah.
Yeah, and imagine that you're doing this for every single role in your company. That's 100 hours a week you're getting back.
Yeah, and I remember so distinctly our conversations where we're looking at like, why is that taking up 10 hours a week? Why is that taking up 15 hours a week? It's like, this stuff shouldn't be you at all. So why don't we talk a bit more about the major roles that you hired for, that because we had some of these standard operating procedures, you were able to offload big chunks of your time, whether that be operations people or teachers who could help you with fulfillment, or salespeople. Like, tell us about the major things that we worked on together that allowed you to step back and actually be a CEO.
So I think before I go into the list of things, look, the sequence in which you start delegating, that part's really important. So the first thing that we started delegating was our appointment setting. Exactly what, am I allowed to talk about your secret sauce on what you taught me to do?
Yeah. Listen, people here right. So, want to learn, so tell them what it is that they should know about my process.
So Lloyd told me, like, all right, I'll pick up a VA. So what a VA is a virtual assistant. And what they do is they help you log into your account. They help start posting your content so that takes the time off your hands. And they start responding to all your DMs. They start responding to all the comments on your posts. So that way, you are technically constantly talking to people, but your physical self is actually worried about building your content and making an epic program. So that's the number one thing that we did. Otherwise, we go into back end as well, where we're looking at our finance side, our operations, our invoicing. We got someone on for that part-time as well. And all the automations. I remember, Lloyd, that we were sitting together and we were looking at this flow chart of the user journey. When they see my organic post and when I give them a calendar link, like what happens and the trail that we lead them. So we automated that entire process, right? So it leads them from like a calendar. So after they go to a calendar, they book an appointment. Automatically, we send them some homework and say, all right, before you come and meet us, finish this. After that, they go straight into a thank you page. So thank you for booking with us. And then we do a little bit of pre-sale, where we start talking about, these are the things that you're going to expect in this free call with us, get them super excited to work with us. And then we mentioned a little bit about my unique method. So I have a method. That this is one thing that Lloyd didn't quite teach me, but I'll teach you. Is if you come up with a unique name of for the method that you do, right? That makes you look unique in your marketplace because nobody else can do what you can do. So I called my high impact learning, and people just wanted to know what this was. So within my pre-sale, I described like roughly what the steps were. I think Lloyd has his, indoctrinate and, his attract and his, I don't know your sequence, but you have a cool one as well. Yeah, so that's what I try to follow as well. And that's crazy effective.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I don't necessarily talk about making a unique name for yourself, but I actually have a unique name for my offer as well, the Organic Autopilot Accelerator, because it literally is that. Like it describes itself, where we're leveraging organic strategies, but we're putting it on full autopilot. And that's what we saw with you, because you still haven't spent any dollars on ads whatsoever. It's pretty rare for you to meet someone who's doing like $100,000 cash collected in a single month with 0 ads. But the only way that we were able to do this is because you were doing things organically, but you actually built a machine, a system that could do things on autopilot. And that's what you didn't have halfway through last year, that at the end of the last year, you did have. So that's exactly, we tried to name our system what it does. And for you, it's the same thing. You named your system what it does, which is high impact learning for your clients. So no, I love it. That's awesome.
So look, just continuing with that story, exactly what Lloyd said. So towards the end of the year, we started putting these systems in. And I remember I was jumping on the group call at 3 a.m, and I was just wanted to share with you that, look, we've got everything up on Kajabi. All my knowledge is there and is productized and ready to be sold. So from there, we started getting our coaches on to help me implement my program. So over the entire summer, we got on a team of 6, and we were training them over the summer. So now that I know I have more capacity to take students on, because there are a lot of people out there who need our help as coaches, right? So if we don't have all these systems and we are trading our time for money, we're actually letting them down, right? It's not so much us, right? So there's so many people who need our help. And if we're just, we only have limited capacity to take people on, we can't help them. So now that's exactly what my team of tutors do. Again, taking all the systems about standard operating procedures on how to train them, what exactly they do in the class, to make sure that you maintain your quality with your coaches. I think that's another whole challenge. And that's another 2-hour video call if you want me to go through all of that. But eventually we got there. So myself and I have someone else that's working with me as well. We can just focus on sales. Yeah, and that's exactly what we did. I think what really got us from the 30K to 100K really is that team that helps us with the fulfillment, because we were stuck on 30K because we literally couldn't take on anymore. And so we're looking at, all right, now I can book in essentially unlimited number of people. I want to put my guys to work. They're looking for work. They want to help. Then there's so many people who do need our help, and now we can help them.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. I think a lot of people fail to remember that scalability is a combination of not just like how many leads can you generate and close, but also how many leads can you support at any given time. And people who undervalue the fulfillment and they're trying to scale lead generation or sales faster than they can keep up with, what typically happens is your clients have a terrible experience and people leave or they complain, your reputation goes down. And once your reputation goes down, it's really hard to repair it. It's much easier to screw up a reputation than it is to build up a good one. So I think the fact that you did take a bit of a slower approach to not sacrifice your client's experience is really, really important. And I do the same, right? Like we only take on as many clients as we can, given that we do one-on-one coaching primarily with group as well, because we feel as though one-on-one coaching provides the best experience for our premium clients. So that's really awesome that you were willing to put in the systems in place for fulfillment. And then because of the fact that the lead generation stuff that we had built up before was already working really well, you just needed to turn it on more, right? Now that your fulfillment could keep up, you could just turn on the lead generation stuff more. I literally remember you telling me that the lead generation stuff, like you could have tripled the amount of leads that you were generating at that point. You just couldn't manage all the lead flow.
Yep.
I remember you telling me this like middle of last year, and I was like, that's a great problem to have. But if that's your problem, then we got to fix, the fulfillment side. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And look, the reason why I took so long to put things into place is because the program that I'm delivering is an 18-month program, right? So I took like 3-4 months to actually build this. If any of your listeners are coaches with like a 6-week or 12-week program, you don't need to wait this long.
Yeah, no, that's pretty interesting. That's a long program for sure. And it's not just like, oh, it's 18 months and like that's how long you're in the program, but the content isn't super robust. It's like literally enough content to last 18 months. So that's quite intense. So no, that's really good. I feel as though that more or less describes your journey. Is there anything else that we have missed so far that we need to still talk about in terms of how you went from 0 to 100K cash collected in January? Or is that
yes. there is one key component.
Tell us more. Tell us whatever else is important.
The key ingredient that I found that just got me leads, like every time I posted something up, I'll get 10-15 people messaging me, right? And that's your Facebook group. So it's exactly what Lloyd was saying about how to grow an effective Facebook group, how to indoctrinate people to have to buy into your vision, right? Because I mean, you guys are whoever's listening to this, you guys are coaches, you're entrepreneurs, you're here to change the world with what you can do and with what you can offer, right? But you need to get your message out in the right way. So tell people about this amazing idea that you have and how it can benefit them, and do that in your Facebook group. Start building a following, and that's exactly what Lloyd did. That's something that I started to do as well. There's some strategies that I worked with Lloyd to get the Facebook group going. I remember there was this call that I was on with you. I was sharing my Facebook group, and I was like, "Dude, I've got 27 followers." And so we really, the key behind that is just look. There's a lot of patience to building your group, but don't give up. Keep building good content. Keep doing your organic posting. Have your CTAs redirect people into your group. My group is still not. I wouldn't say there's a lot of engagement in my group per se. There's not a lot of people posting within my group and saying cool stuff. But every time I put out a piece of content, I've got 15 people DM me. All right, and that's how cool the following is.
I mean, I would argue that that's way better. Like, I would rather have minimal superficial engagement and minimal visible engagement on content. But whenever you share something, you generate like 50 incoming requests for sales calls. Like that would be perfect for me anyways. That's what I would perceive as being like the ideal situation.
I'm not complaining.
So why don't you give us like a very, very quick overview then? I know earlier you already spilled some of my secrets with my operations and my SOPs. So why don't you share a little bit of the secret sauce that I taught you when it came to growing your group to everyone here who's listening? Maybe they'll find it helpful when they're building their own communities and trying to monetize.
Well, one thing you need to do is you need to go back and look for Lloyd's post on how, I think it was like 5 or 6 different things that you said in order to engage your readers in your group.
I have a lot of content, dude. I'm sure I have a lot of content about growing Facebook groups.
Yeah, no, if you test me right now on like what those 5 or 6 things are, I won't be able to tell you. But definitely go look back on one of Lloyd's posts when he talks about growing your Facebook groups organically. What are some of the things that you need, and what are some of the kinds of posts that you can have? Definitely go look that up. One of the things that worked for me was providing that thought leadership. So the way that I do things in my industry is completely different from everyone else. For one, I come from an actual teaching background. So when I come in, I implement all these, pedagogical, the science of teaching, right, all this pedagogy into my lessons. And so when I start posting and say, all right, that you guys have been doing this and it hasn't been working, but this is why, all right, that's when you become a thought leader. That's when you provide, a mechanism, right, for everything that hasn't been working in this industry to something that is going to be working in this industry. And that's when people see, all right, look, there is this new way of doing things. There's this better way of doing things. And of course, you need to prove how. And yeah, that's when people view you as an authority and a go-to figure, because you want to be the only option in your niche. And that's what you're trying to build over here.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. So why don't we actually have anyone who has questions to post below, whatever questions you guys have. If you don't have any questions, then just leave a GIF that tells us what you learned, from this interview, or just share exactly what you learned primarily. What was the most fascinating to you from this conversation that we've had with Chris today, who's been so, generous with his time. And while we wait for anyone and everyone to reply, why don't you just share, what your thoughts would be if there's anyone who's just, on the borderline of potentially working with myself and my team. What would you tell them in terms of if you thought it was a good experience for you, your ROI that you've had from the program in the year that you've been in
it? Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how much you charge now, but when I joined Lloyd, he was just starting up, and I got an incredible offer, and I was like one of his founding clients, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you're literally one of my first 5 clients.
Yeah,
I think something like that.
Yeah. So I got an amazing offer out of him, and I think we paid it back within a week of working together. So obviously he charges a lot more now, but look, business is not something that you can guess your way through. It's the exact same thing that I tell my clients when they're preparing for the selective entry exams, that it's not something that you can just figure out on your own, or maybe when you do, you've already, it's already cost too much time and money. What Lloyd will help you do is he'll get you there faster with the right systems. So there's no trial and error. There's no wastage at all. Look, and whether you take on Lloyd or anyone, like, you do need coaching when it comes to running a business. I've seen too many people out there, and people, who like DM me, like trying to sell me something, like how their pitch is all wrong. And, I see, people trying to do organic on their own without any, proper systems and coaching and templates. And I was just like, no, that's not gonna, that's not gonna generate anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, honestly, if I didn't take on Lloyd's program, I would be one of those people. So yeah, look, if you want to get to 10K or 20K or 30K, find someone who has the systems that can work for you.
Amazing, good stuff. So let's just go through any questions that we have here. Okay, actually, this is an interesting one. This is a very important one because you do serve a local market. So how do you implement the organic sales and marketing for people, given that it is a local market?
Yeah, it was actually one of the things that Lloyd told me not to do, which is post in my generic local group. So yeah, when I said that to Lloyd, I was like, I posted this thing, I was getting like 3 likes on it. And then he was like, dude, that's because you're posting to like a generic group, not a group where your niche lives. And while that was true, look, those, every time I posted something local, I will get my 3 likes or my 5 likes on my posts. Because, like in the 12,000 people or whatever in my local area, 11,900 of them is not going to care about what I say. But you do get that 100 of them, all right, who will listen to you. And even though it looks like 3 likes, 5 likes, you do start building a following if you don't give up, right? If you don't give up that, these posts, like no one's probably going to read them. And it's probably true, like 99% of the people is not going to read them. But there is that 1% that will start to follow you. All right, so the strategy that I found now is that, post in your local groups, but then you lead them into your own Facebook group, because then your own Facebook group is where your entire client avatar and your niche lives.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it is a really good observation. And it is a funnel, right? Like we don't expect going into other communities and sharing content there is going to be the most effective place, because not only do we not have a brand in other people's communities, but like they're not going to see us that often when we're trying to compete against a bunch of other people. When it's our community, we are front and center. So I like that you are utilizing like other communities as a point of entry, but then you're ultimately funneling people back into your own territory where you have a lot more control and power. That's really good. We have another question here. What software or apps do you use to automate your process internally and for your clients?
Oh, interesting. I use a whole bunch of them. So look, Calendly is your best friend. Once you have Calendly, you can then build your entire user journey. So what I've done was with Calendly, I linked it to my Wix website. So after they book my event with them, they booked their event with me. I send them to my website, but not just the homepage. All right, you send them to a landing page, which will tell them their next steps. Over there, they can download the homework. Calendly also allows you to send out confirmation emails, and then I have my homework given there as well. And then all those leads jump into HubSpot. So at first I was using HubSpot just for a sales pipeline app, but now that I upgraded it, I use it for my entire customer database as well. Well, one of the things that you can invest in is an automations guy. All right, if these things are too complicated for you, pay someone to set it up for you one time, and then you got this machine to be working. It's truly worth it. All right, it will save you so much time, and especially when you scale, your systems don't start breaking down, because that's what we experience as well. I was like, all right, cool. I'm getting all these. I have all these coaches on board. I can now start selling more. We just had a flood of clients coming in, and our systems just started breaking left, right, and center. I'm super fortunate to have a friend who is a CTO of his own company, so he jumped on and did the automations for me. But yeah, you definitely need to find someone to help you with these sorts of things, to link your HubSpot to your invoicing and your HubSpot to your mail merges, and everything is sent out so that your clients are on board straight away.
Yeah, cool. I use some of those tools as well. Not all of them are the same, but like at some point you start realizing that there's a lot of similar tools with each other. And as long as you can automate them and integrate them the right way, you're kind of swimming in a lot of like positive results. So yeah, like this is really, really good. If there's any additional questions that people have, ask now, because we're literally about to log off in like 2 or 3 minutes. The last question that I have is, our coaching program and the way in which we service our clients is a little bit different, because we don't just do group coaching. Like my perspective is that group coaching is great, but then there are some downsides. You've actually been part of both my group coaching program and my one-on-one program, because you kind of started at the lower level. So tell everyone here like what you found to be the experience of just getting coached in our program compared to some of the other programs that you've been part of, because I know that you've joined other programs, in terms of just the experience and the level of support that we were able to give you, myself and my team.
Yeah, so I mean, look, that's summarized in a brilliant way. It's all about support. So before I met Lloyd, I actually tried this other program. I'm not going to mention any names, but he had this one-to-many model, which he was trying to push to all of us. As a teacher, it broke all the rules about educating someone. So when I was on this call, there were like 10 of us, and we were all at different stages of our business journey. So some people were talking about, they were trying to automate stuff. Some people were talking about, all right, how do I get my first client? And it was, I don't feel that there was much value in that sense, because like I'm sitting here, I spent, we're entrepreneurs, we're busy people. I'm sitting here for an hour, and maybe only like 5-10 minutes of it was worth my time. But the difference also when I was working with Lloyd, especially if you jump onto his premium one-on-one program, he'll tell you exactly how your business needs to run. So I was sharing with him, these are my figures for this quarter. What am I changing? What do I need to fix? This is my user journey and my sales funnel. What do I need to do? What do I need to fix? And you have that entire solid 1 hour that's working on your business and not just in some group call where you find value for maybe 10 minutes.
There you go. Yeah. It was born out of me also not being like super happy with some of the group coaching programs that I've been a part of. And I get it, like group coaching in theory is a lot more scalable, but we were talking earlier about like, don't move your sales and marketing so fast that your fulfillment can't keep up. Because as soon as your fulfillment drops in terms of quality, bad things happen. And for us, we're always going to make sure that our fulfillment and our client experience stays our number one priority, even at the cost of maybe slowing down lead generation or slowing down closing and sales or whatnot. So yeah, I think that's a great place to end off. I didn't see any additional questions coming in, so I'm assuming that we answered all of them. So congrats to you for being so robust and thorough. But with that being said, thank you so much for hanging out with us. If anyone here has been listening for the last hour or so and you haven't been sharing any comments or leaving any replies, well, now is your time. Just show Chris some love, show Chris some appreciation, drop a big smiley face or some sort of emoji to show him that you really saw value in the stuff that he was sharing today. But with that being said, that's pretty much it. Is there anything that you wanted to end off the conversation with?
Yeah, I mean, look, the one thing that you can have is like all your tactics and strategy and all that for your business. But working with someone like Lloyd, you really build that personal connection, and he'll give you that kick up the butt when you need it. And I think that's one of the best things about being mentored by Lloyd.
Love it, man. Thanks for your hard work. Like, this is always going to be a success story that I remember because you joined our program so early in your business, but also super early in mine, right? Like, I think about people who are joining my business in 2019 and very early 2020 as having almost taken a risk on me, because at that time I didn't have much of a reputation. I wasn't super known, but I believed in what it was that I did. And a couple people believed in me, even though like I was just some like random guy. And you were one of those people, and it's crazy that you're now like absolutely crushing it. And it's only been a year. I still have a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that it's only been a year for you.
Yeah, it's only been a year for us, and it's been awesome.
All right. Well, that's pretty much it on my end. And thanks so much for your time, and we'll see everyone else on the other side.
Yeah, thanks for having me.